everybody, and welcome to the first Tasha Haskins show. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I feel good. I feel ready. I'm wearing lavender. I don't know, what all that means, but I'm excited to be here. I'm grateful just for the opportunity to operate in my full calling without any limitations, without anything hindering me from doing that. I was just sharing with our guest kind of in the virtual green room just how I've always operated in my gifting underneath something else or someone else, representing something else. And so now I have the amazing opportunity to be able to operate under my own brand and kind of, do this thing the way that, Tasha would like to do it, and really dig deep with my guests and dig deep with all of you. You guys, I am kind of a one-man show here. So I'm doing like the production. I'm doing the graphic stuff. So if you see my hands go missing, that's me trying to do kind of all those things. But first, I want to also give a shout out to my amazing makeup artist. She is my ride or die, Vanessa. She is owner of Queen's Allure out of Washington State. She made sure she gave me some purple eyeshadow and all of that. So I got to be cute. Of course, thank you to Fashion Nova Curve, who is still sponsoring me with my wardrobe pieces. So I really appreciate this beautiful dress. Again, also, I want to give a shout out to my 16-year-old. His name is Joseph. He is out of Tacoma, Washington. He is a very well-known gamer in the Fortnite world. And he's the one who kind of helped me learn how to navigate using all this streaming material. And he was at my house till like 11 o'clock last night, testing everything, making sure everything works. So shout out to you, Joseph. You have a great calling on your life and a lot of things ahead for you. So I appreciate that. And but anyway, I'm super, super excited. I see people are watching. I mean, this is like really thrilling. And, I get to just be myself. That's something I'm really excited to be, you guys. I mean, I'm proper and I'm pretty. And according to my makeup artist, I'm professionally petty, whatever that means. But I'm just me. And then we get to really just dig deep. My former show that I had with another company was called Choose You, which was inspired from my book. But this is just the Tasha Haskins show because you know what? Whatever God puts in my heart to dig deep into our guests, of course, with their permission and where they're comfortable, that's what we're going to do. I also am hoping that people will be able to chime in and we can answer real live questions. That is another part of the software I'm still kind of trying to learn a little bit. So if I don't see your comments, I'm sorry. But we're working on that. And but again, you guys, every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, right here, wherever you're watching it, we'll be streaming on YouTube as well as on my Facebook page. Both are Real Tasha Haskins is where you can find all of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to bring on my guest. I was trying to be really snazzy and like bring in a clip from our previous show. That didn't work very well. This is how you know that all of that tech stuff is not my gifting, okay? My gifting is talking, seeing, and pulling the best out of people. Figuring out old clips and adding them into software that I've never used before is not my gifting. So we're not going to do that. I love it because Erin is in the green room cracking up at me right now, and that's fine. But I thought it would have been cool to what we're talking about. So you guys, my first season of guests are going to be what I call the run it back guests. Okay, you guys, I'm a former hooper. And if you know anything about basketball, when you're playing ball and you don't necessarily like how the score turned out, you're like, man, we're running it back because it's same teams, same everything, we're running it back till we like what the outcome is. And so now I get to run it back with several of my guests from my previous show and really dig deeper. So same guest, different show, same host, deeper stuff. So I'm excited for that. So now I'm going to bring on Miss Erin Jones. This woman has, she's accomplished a lot. I mean, she's rubbed shoulders with a lot of people. She's very special to my family, special to my father, rest in peace. But also just a powerhouse in our community, both nationally, internationally, and of course on the basketball court. This woman has had, children and everything. And I've used all the things I've used excuses for not being in shape. She has defied all of those things. So it's hurtful. You guys wait till you see her. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her into the room. I'm loving seeing her laugh. You guys can hear this laugh here. And there she is, none other than Erin Jones. How's it going, lady?
I am so honored to be here. And I just love you so much. I love you so much.
It's true. I mean, look at her. I'm like, oh, I had kids and it was tough. And meanwhile, she could still, if she wanted to go try out for the Seattle Storm right now, she could. Okay. So
I don't know
for
about
those
that,
of us who
but
are, listen, for those of us that are using excuses, she will make sure that you don't have them anymore. Bless her heart. All right. Well, I just wanted to kind of just a little bit, recap for people that probably weren't necessarily able to see the previous interview. I did want you to share just a little bit of your story, a little bit, just kind of set the stage here, you guys, because whether you know her or you don't know her, like, she's a larger than life individual. And she has literally, wherever she goes, things change, lives change. And I know that my life has changed. I didn't get to really know her that well until, like, I don't know, I was old and I decided to go back and play basketball after 18 years. And there she was, and God reconnected us. And so if you could just share a little bit of your story with the audience, Erin, so we can really kind of get to know you. And then we're going to just dig into some things that I know are on your heart about what people are dealing with today, as well as myself.
So I just turned 50 in June this year.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Wait, we're 10 years apart?
We are.
Oh,
We
no.
are.
Okay. Break, cut, how do I cut? So, did she say 50?
50.
Oh, no. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt, ma'am.
Here's why that's important, because I was abandoned in a hospital exactly 50 years ago by my white mother. So I was birthed out of the body of a white woman, obviously not fully white, because I popped out like this. And
that ain't a wig. I'm wearing one, but she's not.
No, this is not a wig.
That is all natural. Yes, I mean, I own this wig, but she was born with that.
But I started life at the Children's Home Society, and was adopted by a white couple who decided to raise me overseas. Now, understand, I was born and adopted in a place called St. Paul, Minnesota, right next to Minneapolis, Minnesota. So for all of you that a year ago had never heard of Minneapolis, Minnesota, understand that's where I started life 50 years ago. So the events of the last year have particular significance for me because that's where I started life, and it's where I experienced my first rejection. So that was the beginning. Started there as an orphan, basically, adopted, raised in Europe at the United Nations School where my parents decided to teach. My parents were working class people growing up. I don't know why they decided to go to Europe, but they ended up teaching at one of the most amazing private schools in the world. Every American president would come and visit that school. So it was just a mile from the United Nations. So every time an American president came to the UN, they showed up at our school. So I had the opportunity to meet really powerful people. I met my first president's wife when I was 9. I hosted Barbara Bush when I was 18 years old. And then I came back to the United States for college at 18. And I had watched The Cosby Show my whole high school career. And I wanted to be Claire Huxtable. I so wanted to be Claire Huxtable.
I feel like everybody wanted to be Claire Huxtable, okay?
Even in Europe, I wanted to be Claire Huxtable.
I still want to be Claire Huxtable. She has a mean, man.
She's kind of bomb.
Yeah.
But anyway, I came back to college in Philadelphia, imagining literally becoming her, because that's where the show was set. And I came back to a Philadelphia that was not the Cosby Show. In fact, right down the street from my college was a cricket club. So y'all, cricket is like a British game. People in America don't play cricket unless they're really rich and bougie. And this particular cricket place had a sign that said, "No coloreds or Jews allowed here." A sign.
What year was that?
Street. 1989. Wow. No, wait, Tasha. That sign did not come down till 2012. 2012. And so I learned what it was to be Black in America in a way that I would not wish anybody to walk through. I would not wish it on anyone. In 1989, there were no cell phones. I couldn't just call my parents. I couldn't just send them an email. Man, life sucks. I just got called the N-word again today. I just got followed in a store again today. They wouldn't seat me in a restaurant today. Like, I couldn't just tell my parents. Wow. So I'm in America by myself. And really what saved me was basketball. Basketball is the thing that saved me. I played basketball for my college. And then when the season was over, my coach, you'll appreciate this, my coach did not check on me once. So when the season was over and I started as a freshman, I played every single minute as a freshman. We won every game for the first time in our college's history. Not once did my coach check on me when the season was over. I was just disposable. And I stopped going to class. I stopped eating. And one day in April, I woke up and the sun was shining on my bed. And I was like, oh, man, I don't even want to live. And now the sun is shining. And I felt this really weird urge to walk. And I know now, because I'm a person of faith now, that was God. Like, hey, Erin, I see you.
Yeah,
I see you. But at the time, I did not know what it was. I just knew I was supposed to get up and walk. And so I did.
Yeah.
And I ended up on a basketball court about 3 miles away, 4 miles away, with a guy named Dr. Julius Irving. Dr. J, y'all. So those of you watching who don't know who Dr. J is, Google him later when we're done. Don't do it now. Google him later. One of the greatest NBA stars to ever play the game. And he was playing basketball on this court in the middle of a little town of Black people where it's where the Help lived. Y'all, if you've ever seen the movie The Help still exists in certain places. And this particular town is where all the Black people lived who worked in the white people's mansions in my college town. And he had built this beautiful basketball court in the middle of that town. And that day he just happened to be playing. And he saw me walking down the street and he was like, you, get out here. We need one more to play 5-on-5. And I was like, I don't know you, but okay, I'm coming. And I would get to play with Dr. J that day. I didn't know who he was, though. I just knew there's this man. He's amazing. He's probably in his late 40s, and he could still jump and dunk without running. He could
Dr. J, man, Dr. J.
Yeah, he was amazing. Yeah. But when the game was over, I sat on the sideline with 3 Black boys who were probably 15, 16, and they had all dropped out of school. And I'll never forget asking these boys, what are your dreams for the future if you're not going to go to school? And each boy said, I don't expect to live to be 21. Why would I dream? And I knew in that moment what my purpose was. I knew in that moment. I know now it was God showing me my purpose. That at the time, I just knew so clearly that my parents had been changing the world my whole life as teachers. But I just had never seen teaching as a way to change the world until that moment. And I knew in that moment, number 1, I needed to become a teacher. Number 2, I knew I couldn't go back home to Europe. I knew I could not go home to Europe. So I ran all the way back to my college. Here. Yep. And I knew I needed to be that representation for young men like that of what was possible. And so I ran all the way back to my college, called my parents and said, I'm not coming back. I need to stay. And that was 32 years ago. Wow. And I have been in America teaching and playing basketball ever since.
Wow. Literally ever since. And which is powerful. And there's some things you talked about. Now, this wasn't necessarily the original direction I wanted to go, but I just think because especially I've used this analogy a lot where as people, when you think about a physical injury, right? You know, especially if you're a hooper, you know, especially in people of color, you know, you big boy Johnny in the 6th grade at 6 foot and you getting us out the hood. You're about to go to the league. So if little Johnny, you know, hurts his ankle, what is mama and them doing? They're taking him to the ER. They want to get a diagnostic. They're going to take him to therapy. They want to make sure he's okay so he can get back on the court so he can do what he needs to do to get everybody out the hood or whatever he's supposed to be doing, you know. But when it comes to the matters of the heart and the mind, we're like, oh, what do you mean therapy? Oh, what do you mean, you know, these different things? And so I want to speak to how you kept saying that my coach never checked on me. And in the Black community, Erin, you know, we're so focused on like, I'm trying to get this contract and I'm going to be this type of hooper or this football player or whatever, not understanding what's happening in here. And every day, you know, just like even we had a recent NFL player that's dear to us at the Seahawks, right? Who like just clearly some things ain't going okay on the inside, but he was as good as what he could do on the field, right? Yeah. And so I want you to kind of speak to that about just how much the brokenness and the mental state of a person is when they're actually trying to do this thing called life, especially as an athlete. Because I've literally had people, my son who was 6'4", 240, whatever. Hey man, you play ball? He's like, no. Well, man, that's a waste of talent. What are you talking about? How am I wasting my talent because I'm big? And that mindset of that we're only worth our physical value that runs so deep in the Black community because of those systemic things. So why don't you speak to that? Just being an athlete and being a Black woman, you know, kind of that whole nuance there, because that's a real thing.
So, met several stories I want to speak to. First of all, I have a 6'4" Black son who also is not an athlete. So I
you be in the girl. He go to the barbershop. They say they'd be like, why? Because I'm big and black, and they'd be like, then you have the guy in the corner going, well, yeah. Like,
yeah.
How does that sound? You know?
Well, and my son is a third-year graduate student at USC right now, getting a degree in computer science. He's going to get paid somewhere, and his body will be in one piece when he's done. His body will be in one piece. So, but I say that as a mom who's walked through that with both my sons are big boys, and my husband played college football. And so, you know, there was a lot of, when we first got married and had our first son, it was something we talked about is, man, as much as we love sports and we met playing basketball, we don't want our kids to feel like they have to follow in our footsteps. But how many Black parents, like, they live vicariously through their children, and we want and so I learned this really quickly in the United States, that there were so few images of what it was to be a real Black person. I learned this within a year of being in America. You got to be a ball player of some kind, either basketball, football, or you have to be a rapper. So back in the 80s, those were your options. That was it. Those were your options.
Unfortunately, that hasn't changed to some degree.
No, you're right.
You know, I mean, but that's a whole other topic. Go ahead.
Entertainer of some kind, right? Like, like we are shown value when we entertain, whether it's in front of, on a stage somewhere, even pastors. I'm going to argue, even pastors sometimes, right? It can be about anyway. You know that you and I know that.
Girl, listen, this is the Tasha Haskins show. We don't got to censor. There's nothing telling me I'm the person that can pull the plug, and the plug is loud and clear. I check every stream. We make sure I got clear internet. We are hardwired in. This is no Wi-Fi, okay?
Right, but here's the real deal. I think for too long we've been kind of stepping and fetching. Like we did 300 years ago, right? There's been this pattern of, as long as you do this and you're making people money, you're really Black. And so one of the things that I say about myself is I want to be a walking disruption of narratives. I want to disrupt the story that we tell about what Blackness is. And so guess what? I speak 4 languages. I play instruments. I play basketball. Right, and. So I tell my students all the time, okay, love to play basketball, love to play football. As soon as you get an injury, what's the other thing? Because I know you got something else too. And so guess what? Why not be smart and play basketball?
You know how many professional athletes went back to school during the pandemic? They were like, oh, crap. Like, what am I going to do? Like, you know, I can't hoop no more. Like, oh, my God, I should probably finish my degree that I dropped out of doing because I wanted to, you know, get to the league and everything else.
But it's one of the reasons that I became a teacher, because I realized really quick, and it's one of the reasons I spent so much time teaching middle school, because I was watching, I taught a little bit of elementary, I've taught some high school, but I was watching middle school, especially boys, when it comes to Black children, especially boys, get one message about what they need to be and do. And I said, if I can get to boys early, like 5th, 6th grade, and really get them thinking, okay, basketball and, not saying you can't play basketball, but I need you to have an and there.
Yes.
So whether the and is music or the and is computer science or the and is whatever the and is, you always have to have an and, because basketball or football is only going to take you so far. I mean, the average athlete is going to make money, whether that's in college or beyond college, really for about 3 or 4 years. The average athlete, right? If you get beyond high school, you'll play 2-3 years of college. If you're lucky, like 1 in a million, you'll get to the league and maybe play a year or 2. But you have to have a plan after that. Like if you're done by 25 or 27, you just having basketball isn't enough to give you a life. And I would argue that, having talked to a former Seattle player, Sonic player, James Donaldson, we had lots of conversations about. James. I know I love James so much, but
he was the only guy I knew taller than my dad.
Oh my God, James. The first time I met James, this is such a funny story. My husband is James too, but the first time I met James Donaldson, he was sitting down. So I walked into the room, and James is of an age where he has to get up and shake your hands if you He has to, so he got up and he just kept going. And Tasha, you know, like I'm tall, I'm 6 feet. He just kept going. And I'm
7'2", 7'2's like, I remember seeing him stand next to my dad, you know, when they, you know, play ball together at W. And I was like there's someone bigger. And my dad was 6'9", so I was like, there's no one bigger than him. Like, no. And that guy, and his hands are like, that's a whole nother, you know,
he used to talk a lot about, he did a lot of research, and he said within 2 years of an NBA star being done, they're broke and divorced. He said the average NBA player, and he just studied the NBA because that was his thing, but he said within 2 years. So if that's true, the other thing that's really important for our young men to know, but also our young women, now that there's a WNBA, you have got to know how to manage money. Because if you don't, I don't care how much money you're making in a year, if you don't know how to manage your money, that money will be gone. And so I knew as a teacher, I got to help my students learn to love math. I got to help my students learn how to read so they can read their contract. So let's say you're good enough to get to the
girl,
right?
Listen, I want to, now here, I'm going to kind of go here somewhere that, I'm about to take it there, Miss Erin. There are some systemic narratives and messages that play into this. Okay, there's a reason why Black people, Black men actually think their value is in there. So I'm trying to even with my camera. I'm like, wait, where am I? Okay, this is new. Okay, this is new. I'm working on it. But I mean, no, that has told them, okay, the narrative in our country's history that this is what you do. Oh, you big and you strong. You belong out here. You're here for entertainment. Football ain't new. They used to have us fight against each other to make money and for entertainment. Singing and dancing a jig isn't new. There's a reason why that people, let's say, the Jay-Z's, Beyonce's of the world are not under attack because they fall into those categories. They can't change legislation. They're not doing anything. They're perpetuating the circles that they want us in, right? Those balls. I'm just putting it out there. Like, that's what it is. So if you dancing a jig and shaking your booty and twerking, you are no threat. You're not changing anything. Perfect. Yes, I will pay you billions of dollars to twerk and do whatever you want to do. Right. And so that mindset that's been embedded. That's why you will hear, I was never that mom because I knew better. I was trained better, but I was never that mom that when my kids surpassed me in height, because I'm 5'11", and said, oh, hey son, man, you know what? Put down those books, boy. You better get out there and play because you're going to get us. Never, like, if you want to read. My son used to be in competitive reading. And I was okay with that. I go to reading bees. I never knew those things could be so fun. I'm like, yeah, you better stay. No, you memorize this, boy. Like, I was in it, like, at a reading. They were like, is she serious? Pom-pom signs at a reading bee. I did not care, okay? And that's something that is so, we become okay with it because it's just a matter of making money, or it's a matter of this or a matter of that. So, I don't know what you would say to how we talk about breaking down systemic racism and all this other stuff, but there's a whole lot of dismantling of mindsets that are what are perpetuating this, and that's why we're in 2021 and people still think they need to, play ball to get out of whatever they're trying to get out of. So what are your thoughts around that when you're working with these young people, understanding that there's an actual indoctrination that is being perpetuated and passed on and passed on?
Well, so right now I teach teachers. So I am not in a classroom teaching children anymore. I teach teachers because here's the deal. We are perpetuating those myths in classrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
We're perpetuating those myths in classrooms. When we don't have Black men in front of classrooms, when we are reading texts that are all white people and our students still, then what gets reinforced? Well, play basketball. If the only Black person in your building is the security guard or the basketball coach, we continue to perpetuate those narratives, right? I mean,
I'm sorry. Okay, sis. Yes, ma'am.
Just saying, right?
So we have a diverse staff, and it's the basketball coach, and the security guard.
So and I'm not saying anything against the basketball coach or the security guard.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
What I am saying, though, is if that's the message that our young people are getting every day, this is where you belong. And guess what? No adult needs to say that to them. They get to see it every day when they walk into that building, and the only people who look like that, they're never the librarian, hardly ever. I mean, like 1% is the librarian. Right. You're not saying it as the computer science teacher is not the Black guy. And so I tell teachers all the time, okay, if you don't have Black and brown people in front of your classrooms, if you don't have a Black or brown principal, what are you doing to bring in community members who are not just athletes? What are you doing to bring in community members who are business owners, who are opera singers, who are playing an orchestra? Like, how do we disrupt those narratives? Children can only imagine what they've seen. And if we're not exposing them to things, and guess what? Parents only know what they have seen. And so your mom and dad knew to do something different. And so you knew to do something different. My mom and dad showed me something different. And so I knew to show my children something different. But
Right.
I think, yes, families are responsible, and we can't expect them to be able to show their children what they've never seen before. And so
That's
part of my work is it's
that's
two-sided.
good.
I got to help families, but I also have to help the school system show something different, right? So that on both ends,
So
we are
good.
working with people.
That's so good. And I hope if there are any educators that are watching, because oftentimes our solutions are what I call symptomatic solutions. Okay. They are Band-Aid solutions. They're not like, oh, there's a splinter that's really deep that we need to open up and pull out and figure out. It's kind of like, okay, well, let's just get them better books and let's remodel the school. And like, no, this is a little bit deeper than, yes, they need to have more quality things, but if they don't know what to do with that, right, that's not going to change the outcome. And I do, though, one thing that's a little bit different, and we're going to kind of take a caveat here, Erin, because there are people that are watching live that are excited. So I just want to kind of acknowledge them. If anyone has any things that you want to share, so far, it's just people that are saying that things look great. So I guess I won't necessarily post those, but I am grateful for that because since I am a one-man show, I am Pinocchio, although I'm not a liar, but I am Pinocchio and Geppetto at the same time. So I appreciate that people. So I think we have, oh, look at that. Oh, Teresa, thank you. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm hoping you guys are taking away more than what I look like. Okay. I'm just saying. I did put a lot of effort into it, though. Definitely.
Oh, Krishna. Yay.
Hey, wait, is this someone? Oh, hey.
Krishna is my best friend. That's my best friend right there.
Hey, my best friend. Hey, okay. Yes, 50. Yeah, I didn't need you to rub it in. That's fine. Go ahead, and we're not going to show her comment anymore. Okay. So no, but that's so good, and I think this is something that it's hard for people to really, because I know this whole the race thing and the narrative thing, and people are just like, oh, like, why can't we just, it's 2021. I'm like, well, so if you have a building that has a foundation that is just as deep as it is tall, okay, demolitioning, you can demolition the top of the building, but you have an entire 40, 50, 60, whatever floor building in concrete that is down there that needs to be dealt with. And building a new building on top of that is not going to do that. And so I really am grateful that you are not being a symptomatic solutionaire, is what I want to call it. Because I will call that out. I will say, look, so why do you think that? When people are like, oh, you're just so well spoken. And I'll say, compared to what?
Right.
Compared to yourself? Compared to the last person in lavender that you saw? Compared to what? And you are challenged. Like there's that stuff that's in there that I'm no longer allowing. I was actually a part of something in the last something, okay? And I was very direct about wanting to target women of color. If you're not an oppressed, marginalized group of people, you don't need the extra support. Okay. Right. If I could go into the store and find a Band-Aid that matched my skin color, I wouldn't have a problem. Okay. So if I wanted to buy a nude bra and it wasn't the color of, I don't know, whatever white, this background right here, then I wouldn't have a problem. Right. So obviously, but I was actually asked by the powers that be if I could eliminate the people of color out of my statement. And I was like, no, I can't. Now, years ago, I might have been like, okay, or I may not even have the guts to do it. But those types of things, those are small, but it's still a mindset. Like, actually, no, I don't. Because if I wanted to save the whales, you wouldn't say, can you take out whales and include goldfish? Mm-hmm. If I, you wouldn't be asking me, can you not say whales? Because all the other fish in the sea might feel some type of way. Right? Yeah. And so for me, where I'm going with this, Erin, is that those conversations, that accountability has to be had. And it sounds to me like you've had to have some coming to Jesus moments with educators, with systems within the school system. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because, that needs to be like, that is where it starts, right? And unfortunately,
Right.
a lot of kids and their mindset and their desire to be something comes from their teachers. Like
Yeah.
they no kid says, hey, like most kids actually don't grow up saying they want to be an athlete. Actually, most of them, their goal, like my kids were like, I want to be an NBA player. Like they maybe wanted to play a sport, but they were like, I want to be a culinary artist, or I want to be a gaming designer, or I want to be a fireman. That's the common one, right? I want to be a pet doctor. What are they called? Veterinarian. Yeah.
Veterinarian.
Yes, there you go. They're not, so it takes those influences, which usually are our teachers, our educators, that start shaping and minimizing and oh, don't actually take these classes, because then you don't have to worry about getting the 2.0 so you can play on the basketball team. So let's get you a remedial schedule so that you can still qualify to get on the team. That message.
Yeah. So many things I want to say to that. I want to go back first to something that you were describing, the building and the foundation. So I use an analogy. I'm going to pull in your Band-Aid analogy too, and just kind of blend those things together.
Yes.
I talk a lot about America has a wound in its arm that is, it was a small cut, and then we put a Band-Aid over it, but we never let the air and light get to it. And so it just got deeper and deeper and deeper, and it got infected. And we've just been putting prettier Band-Aids over the top of it, prettier Band-Aids, but the wound is spreading and going deeper, and it's getting into the bone. And as you know, as an athlete, when you fall down and you scrape your knee, you actually have to clean it out. You got to put some antiseptic on it, and then you got to leave it up into the air and the light, and that's the healing. And so I see that as my job is to pull off the Band-Aid. And here's the reality. It's painful. Like when you pull off a Band-Aid and it's infected, you actually got to go in and scrape out the infection. So if you go to the ER when you have a really bad infection, they actually have to scrape it out and get the infected stuff out, and then put antiseptic on it and let the air get to a little bit, and then put a Band-Aid. You got to take the Band-Aid off every once in a while, let the air get to it, right? That's where we are right now. And I feel like it's my job to pull the Band-Aid off of people and give them some antiseptic. And that's not always fun. Like people don't always like to see me come in. But here's what I'll tell you. I'm going to do that with love, though. I'm going to pour some antiseptic. I'm going to hold your hand as I pour some antiseptic so you can squeeze on my hand. I'm going to hold my hands out. You can hold my hand. You can squeeze hard on it when you need to. But it's actually not love. It's not love to not put antiseptic on that wound. That's actually not loving this country. No. And so I would invite, especially those of you watching from the United States, that we're in a moment right now where we could let that infection just go deeper and deeper and deeper and just keep covering it. But at some point, we're going to have to hold to account. And what I worry is if we don't expose, at some point, we're going to have to cut the arm off. Ooh. Right? At some point, that infection is going to be so deep that we have to cut the arm off. And that's not what I want. And so I'm all about pulling that Band-Aid off right now. And so what do teachers have to do with that? I think there are a lot of teachers that don't explicitly tell students to go play basketball or to go play football, but they also don't explicitly say to Black boys. And I'll just use this because my Black boys have experiences being larger.
I got 3 of them. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and talk about it.
They don't explicitly say, I see you're brilliant. They don't explicitly say that. And then they give our children books that have only white doctors and only white engineers and only white veterinarians. And so our children don't need the teacher to say, well, you can't be a veterinarian. What they see is in every textbook and every children's book, what they see is engineers and doctors and lawyers and scientists who don't look like them. And so what I tell teachers all the time is you actually don't have to intentionally tell our children not to do something. You just have to intentionally tell them they can be something else. That's your job. Your job is to see the gifts and talents in young people and to speak those out into existence. And so I encourage, one of the things I just did today, I taught 4 classes today. So today's been a long day. I tell teachers,
bless your heart. Thank you.
Put your hands out in front of you. And I want you to imagine all the gifts and talents that you've been given. I have never in my 30 years of working with kids met a child who doesn't have a gift or talent. Never, not one time. And so I tell teachers, okay, put your hands out. What are your gifts and talents?
Yeah.
Imagine those physically in your hands. Now, on the first day of school, I want you to do that with your children. Ask your children, what are the gifts and talents? What are the things? You don't have to be the best at it to be great at it. You don't actually have to be the best to find your best thing. And so I want you to put your hands out. Okay, little 5-year-olds, what do you love to do when you're not at school? Oh, I love to go play with stuff in the dirt. Well, maybe that kid's going to be a veterinarian, right? Or I love to draw. My mom gave me a coloring book and I love to, well, maybe you're going to be an artist. And so as a teacher, I'm going to look for opportunities for that child to do art. If I hear about something in the community where an artist is coming or there's a special elective, I'm going to make sure I tell that child. And especially those children who are living in poverty, which tend to oftentimes be Black and brown children or children who don't speak English. I'm going to tell teachers, man, you got to speak that into that child. You need to be looking for opportunities to connect that child to opportunity. Yes. And that's how we're going to disrupt these patterns of behavior.
That is so good. I love that. I mean, and I'm listening to it. I'm thinking like, I think adults need to do that. Like, okay, no, like seriously, like before we leave the house, before we, we wake up, I'm going to pray this, I'm going to do this. But it's like, wait a minute, what are taking an inventory of, what are my gifts and talents? Am I operating in that, or am I just doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing? I mean, I'm very grateful for the parents I had, because they were literally like go against the grain people. Yes, my dad was a basketball player, but he also had a degree in business, and he also, connected people that were not from the same place, and suburban people to urban and all that kind of stuff. And, I mean, my mom was one of the first, Black executives in Bank of America. Well, First Bank turned Bank of America. I mean, all these different things. And so I'm grateful to have had that. So like for me, I'm kind of like, if that's what everyone thinks I should be doing, well, let me do the opposite. Right. But just being able to tap in your gifts. And I have one of my friends that's on here now, her name's Teresa. She is from California. And she was the one who kind of spoke into me like, Tasha, your gifts are size you. Right. And those gifts may not be what everyone thinks it should be. I said, I'm doing this show and I'm not going to be the loud clack-a-lacking, ghetto nails long and talking about whose band slept with whoever. I'm not doing it. I'm not knocking. Hey, those shows obviously get ratings, but that's not who I am. Like, that's not who Tasha is. And I'm still a Black woman. Okay. So, if they had the segregated buses, I'd still have to sit in the back. All right. So just so you guys are wondering, just so you know, they're not going to go, ooh, we're not going to hang her because she talks well. Like, that's not how that works. OK, and I can still make an impact as is in who I am. And here, this is another quote for Trish. She was talking about leaning into your gifting. Right. And I think us as a people, instead of feeling like our gifts are limited to just entertainment and sports or this or that or working for somebody. Okay. Leaning into it, understanding like there's a reason why our inventions were pirated. Okay. There's a reason why all these things, why not you? Why not us be the ones to make that the multi-billion-dollar idea? Why am I finding out that all these Black products are actually owned by white people? Like, what? And so actually, even I think you talked about it starts with the parents. So then I'm going to kind of be not even the devil's advocate, but maybe the parent's advocate, because I think that I know that my mindset directly connected to what I spoke into my children. Right. So my sons know that because they didn't get a Division I basketball scholarship, that I do not see them as a failure. Right. When there are so many brown parents, man, you could have, maybe he wants to be a culinary artist. I have a son that's actually in culinary school, one that wants to be a gaming engineer, like why, I know that that's because of what I'm sharing with my children, that they're not ashamed that they don't have a jersey hanging from somewhere. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's awesome. I mean, hey, if you have the ability, you have the ability. But so talking to what I want to challenge the parents. We put a lot of pressure on teachers to raise me as a new parent. Like, I think the daycare, I was like, listen, okay, he's going to learn how to read at the daycare. He's going to learn that, I was a young single mom. I'm like, this is hard. I don't like it. I love them, but this is hard. And so we put so much pressure on teachers, not just to teach, but to even teach them their identity. So then when you have these teachers that have the deficits that you're talking about, giving them the seeds of their identity, then we want to know why our kids are these one-dimensional, like, we don't know what to do if we're not doing this. So I just want to challenge the parents who are watching, especially those Black and brown parents. Like, what narrative, what are you saying to your children? And then if what you're saying isn't clicking, then what are you saying to you?
That means that's so good.
Like, something's got to change up here. I had to start changing what I was telling Tasha. Like for real. You know, my sons, I'm going to keep it real with you guys. You guys know I've been on this healing journey, you know, and I wish I thought the way I thought now when I was raising my big boys. You know, they're still turn out good and all that. But, you know, my middle son was like, Mom, you know, Xavier, he's so lucky. He's going to really turn out good, you know, because I have a balanced sense of self, because I know who Tasha is. I know whose I am. I'm operating in that. And that's what I'm showing to my son. You know, and I can't say that I all the way did that for my big boys, because I didn't know how. I didn't know I was operating in dysfunction.
And I think too, you got to start where you are. So here's what I would say to parents: don't look back and wish you had been somebody different. Take what you know today and do better from here out. Because I think we can operate in a lot of shame, right? When we look back and wish. None of our children come with a manual. So I'll just say, I have one on the autism spectrum. I have an adopted kid whose mom and dad were Hilltop Crips. I have a third one who's dysgraphic. None of them came with a manual. So there are ways that I wish I could go back and like, have a do-over. Right? So what I would say to the parents watching, it's not about what you did yesterday. It's how are you going to move forward in a different way. So once you know better, do better. But don't go back and say, man, I wish I had. Say, you know what? I'm sorry for what I didn't do then, but I choose to be better from here on out.
Yes. Yeah, I've definitely had that direct conversation, you know, with my sons, and said, hey, I mean, I even had to come and do this. You guys lay it on me. Tell me the things that I did right that impacted, because I think oftentimes, especially as adults, a lot of our limitations and our pains and our hurts is because of just undealt with stuff. And people want to be like, oh, I did the best I could, suck it up, get over it. And it's like, no, this was actually traumatizing. It changed the trajectory of my life. So while you don't need the I'm sorry for closure, which I've learned, but I've also understood the power of it. So I've made myself very vulnerable to my sons, especially my adult sons. You know, tell me, you know, this. And they've said, and Erin, you know, I'm real raw. I'm real. I healed out loud. My book shares it all. Like my kids told me, Mom, like when you used to come home drunk and you'd be crying or this or that, or, oh, I know you're trying to find us a dad, but you had all these different dudes and they were doing this to us and that. We would have just been okay having you. Yeah. You didn't need to have a mom and dad. We could have just had you, Mom. You were good enough. Woo. Yeah. You know, being able to be open to having that conversation. So now as adults, right, I can still, because parenting doesn't end. Okay. I'm 40 and I'd be like, so Mom, what happened? You know, like, woo, Mom, you know, who's your emergency contact? My mom. You know, a whole 40 years old. Yes, she's my emergency contact. But anyway, you know, and having those conversations, which kind of help get over that hump, getting that accountability, and then saying, okay, but now I have these tools. Now I know what to do. Now I know who I am. Let's let you walk the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, should the Lord tarry, of your life. Let's do that, you know? Yeah. And so that is something else that has helped me when I'm thinking about regrets, because that's a real thing. It's easy to be like, oh, don't feel that way. But it's like, no. When you realize, especially when the lenses come off and it's like, I can see clearly now and I'm healed, you're like, oh my God, I was a toxic parent. I was trying, but I was trying toxicity. And then it passed on to them. And I thought like, ooh, you know, and it's hard to not hurt. But then, like you said, acknowledging and being like, but you know what? This is where I'm at now. And I want you to be great. Let's link arms and make that happen.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so grace. It's about grace, right?
Yeah.
Like we're all going to mess up, and we all mess up in different ways, right? So for some, it's alcohol. For others, it's sex. For others, it's whatever. It's whatever. We all have addictive behaviors, ways of thinking we're healing, right? Taking care of harm and trauma. And all of us have those things. So it's recognizing, being willing to face those things in our past and say, man, I see you. I see that thing in my past, and it does hurt to look at it. And I choose to move forward and become something different.
No, absolutely. And you know, it was interesting. I had a phone call with somebody I haven't talked to in a few years. And this person, you know, kept referencing things that I had done before, or, you know, when they saw me out or whatever the case may be. And I said, you know, I'm really sorry I can't be a part of this conversation because that person doesn't even exist anymore. Yeah. Like, I don't even know who we're talking about. Yeah. You know, and I mean, like, I don't even know how to respond to that, you know? And I think understanding that, going through that process of healing, right, is okay. There's never like a time where you're too old or you've done this or done that. Like, I'm like, ooh, these next 40 years of my life are about to be dope. You know, like it's not, you know, it's not too late. And I think that it's so powerful what you're doing, Erin, because it's so multi-layered. And while you are using education as your ministry tool, but that's what it is. I mean, it's like all the pageants and modeling and stuff. And I mean, I love it and it's great, but you know how many women's lives I get to speak into?
Yeah.
Like, the beauty industry is the most hurting industry in the world. These women look at themselves, they look gorgeous and they hate themselves. Not just physically, like in every way. Most of my coaching, a third of my coaching in pageants is the mind. Like the mindset, like literally, like getting them to understand who they are. I could put you in whatever dress you want to wear, but you got to know who you are walking on that stage. And so I love that. I look at this. I mean, I'm sure you already knew that's not a news flash, but I'm just going to say it because I want to, that you are using your education as ministry, right? To speak into these people's lives and to speak into not just the children, but the parents, and getting to that kind of root issue in the parents. So what I would like to ask you is, if you have let's say a person who maybe has been, this is not even the direction I was originally going to go on this show. You know how God is, like his ways aren't our ways. It's like, Tasha, we're just going to just go ahead and do it. Just go there, but it's needed. It's necessary. You know, what would you say, let's say, to a parent, whether it be a single parent, red, yellow, black, or white, that is trying to or wants to change kind of that narrative and that trajectory of that limited scope of what your child's greatness can be, or even what your greatness can be as a parent for them?
So I would say it's all about your mindset as a parent. So first of all, it's never too late to become a great parent, and parenting is hard. So I just want to acknowledge even parents who were raised by great parents, my parents, shout out to mom and dad, awesome parents. It's still really hard to be a parent. So I just want to acknowledge, first of all, that parenting is really hard. Get help. Okay. Not one of us can raise our children alone. And so one thing that I would say to you that was such a gift for my children, they all had like mentor type figures in their lives. So I knew that even though I was pretty successful and my husband was, and we were together, we knew we could not raise 3 boys on our own. And so there were people in my children's life that served as mentor figures for them. And so parents, if you see a talent in your child, find an adult who does that thing and ask that adult, would you be willing to just show up for my kid once a month, maybe every other week? Just take them out to coffee, share with them what you do for a living. Find ways to partner with people in your community who are doing the thing that you see as your kid's gifting. And don't be afraid to ask for help from other people. I think so often, I'll say this especially for Black parents that I see, there's a lot of shame in asking for help. So we think we have to do everything on our own. And if I say I don't know how to do something, that means I'm weak. Well, guess what? We're all weak. We all need help. All of us need help. And so don't hesitate to get help. And why not join with 4 or 5 parents who have kids the same age as yours and start bringing in guest speakers and get guest speakers in front of your children, right? Like I did.
Said have a whole conference for you and your kids in your home.
Right. Like,
I love that. I love it.
We make this so hard, but you know, back when the pandemic started, I felt like God said, go online and just start doing Facebook Live. So I went Facebook Live for middle and high school kids from March to June 30th. And I was doing this class called Becoming a Change Agent. And I figured I would just teach kids how to check their identity, figure out what they were good at, and then what are the next steps to getting to your purpose. And then my husband said, hey, honey, don't you have 20,000 people following you? I said, yeah. He said, don't you have change agents that are already following you? Why don't you just invite them to your class? So I started inviting these former NFL players who are now authors and business owners. They got to meet the first Black Supreme Court Justice in Washington State, the first Asian Supreme Court Justice. The president of the University of Washington came to my class, and my students got to meet her in my classroom. They got to, my 12 and 13-year-old children got to ask her whatever questions there was nothing. I did not define the kinds of questions children could ask. And so they got to ask all of these really powerful people. One of my students is playing professional basketball in Europe. So he got online and talked about his journey. through college and into professional athletics, but also talking about, man, he's got an education too. He already has a college degree. So when he's done, he's learning to speak another language, right? My
Yes.
students got to be exposed, and it didn't take a lot of time and effort. It was just, who's in my circle? How do I expose, and how do I bring other families and other children into that world? And so I
Yeah.
just want to encourage, if you're a parent watching, why not get together with 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 other parents and figure out who's in your networks that you could bring in front of your
So good.
children and just expose all of them to the opportunities that are out there.
That's good. That's really good. And Erin, I'm about to do something that's like, I wouldn't say it's ghetto, but I would say that it's me doing what I can with myself. And I would like for you to tell me how people can connect with you. And I'm going to put you on a banner because I probably should have done this beforehand. But if I had a show producer in the atmosphere, then I wouldn't have to worry about it. So I want people to be able to see it on screen and be able to reach out to you and connect with you. So do you have like a website or a best email or?
So the best way to reach me is actually on Twitter. I'm
Really?
it is actually, if people send me a private message, I will respond immediately. I'll respond that day within an hour. And my Twitter handle is at Erin Jones in 2016. Email is tough. I can give you my email, but here's what I'll tell you. Because I've run for political office, I get emails from politicians every single day. I taught for 5 hours. I don't have energy to go.
Is that right, Erin? Did I spell it right?
Erin Jones in 2016. So Erin Jones in 2016.
Okay, just kidding. Do over, everybody.
And
So,
then,
and A-N-D?
I-N. Erin Jones, I-N in 2016.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So
And
for
then
my future guests, this will be done in advance. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. So I'm also on Instagram, and you can find me on Instagram. It's easy. It's all a version of Erin in 2016.
Nope, I'm adding it on here. Nope, I'm doing it.
At Erin in 2016. So no Erin Jones, just Erin in 2016.
Okay, so IG, y'all.
Yep.
E-R-I-N.
I-N 2016. Yep, that's my Instagram handle. I am on TikTok as well, and I'm at Afro Educator.
I can't. You're a TikToker too.
Hey, I work with middle school.
Is that right,
children,
Erin?
okay? That's right. Yep. Yay!
Okay.
And then I have a book that just came out on Amazon, so you can find me on Amazon as well.
Watch this, you guys. Wait for it.
Uh-oh.
Wait for it. I'm about to get fancy, you guys. Look at this. What? Oh, snap. There's the book, you guys. It's on Amazon, Bridges to Heal Us. Why don't you share a little bit about what your book is about, Miss Erin?
Yeah.
I know we can't see us, but that's what it looks like, you guys. There you go.
Okay. So it's really, it is.
I'm proud of myself, okay? Like, this is hard. Like, I'm like, you know, I mean, I know someone's going to be my inbox like, girl, okay, I'm going to come help you.
Hey, that's what we need. We need help, right?
Yes.
That's okay. That's okay. So my book is really, it's autobiographical. It's not my autobiography. So I want that to be clear. It's not my autobiography, but it is autobiographical in that I use stories from my life to help people understand how to build bridges for racial healing. Because in case you didn't realize, we got all kinds of hot mess in this country around race. And I believe that we have to learn how to have the hard conversations about race. That's taking the Band-Aid off, right? Like, I want to help people take the Band-Aid off and get whole. I want to help people learn how to have the hard conversations that are necessary. I'm all about doing the hard thing. That's why I was playing basketball at 45 years old, because I am all about doing the hard thing. I'm not about doing the easy thing.
Notice how she likes to rub that in. I just want you guys to...
No.
It's really sweet and humble, but the point is like, I could dunk on you on 45. It's fine. Go ahead, continue, Erin. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I mean, I could, run circles around you at 45. It's fine. So humble. I know the professional petty. Okay, I'm a queen of professionally petty. That's what my makeup artist calls me. Okay.
But here's the other thing. I just want to just caveat there around sports and being a woman and an older woman. I think way too often women stop doing the thing that they love when they have children. And I think it can be a really bad message to our children. So one of the things that was really important to me as a pastor's wife was I was not about to stop what I love to do.
Yes.
I wanted my children to see me doing what I love. I was going to take care of my children, but I also was going to do what I loved. And I have no regrets about that at all. That I kept playing until I was 45. I stopped at 45 because I was watching my friends like tear Achilles tendons and ACLs. I'm like, I'm going out. I'm going out while I'm still.
But that was so cool. Like your story just on a sidebar, and you see one of your people want to know how they can get an autograph copy. I don't think it comes autographed. Can you see that, Erin?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so maybe you hit her on Twitter apparently, because that's how she responds to, and she can try to make that happen for you. But you know, that's something that really inspired me too when you came, was because I had some negative feedback when I went back after, you know, and unlike you, I stopped because, you know, I chose my baby over basketball. It was just me. And, you know, but when I did like a 18-year comeback, people were like, that's selfish. But the irony was my kids were like, you know, Snapchatting me. My mom's wearing Under Armour. Oh my gosh, she's in Hyperdux. And, you know, they weren't posting, you know, Kobe Bryant recipe. They were posting me. Yeah. They were like, oh my God, I can do anything. Because my mom, you know, came out, I looked like RoboCop with all my armbands and everything else. And I was like, you know, they called me in to sub and I was still trying to walk. They're like, are you coming in? Or I'm making my way, okay? Girl, okay, funny story. I used to spike my Gatorade just to make it through the running, okay? I don't think I told Coach Reese this, but literally that little Gatorade bottle, I was like a couple shots of I was like, they made up all bear crawls, 17s, pushing plates. We weren't doing none of that in the 90s.
And okay? Coach Reese does not mess around.
Not mess around. She's like, I understand this is a beautiful thing and all, but you have to do the same thing as everybody else. Girl, I was lit running those 17s like at 35, okay? You know, but anyway, lit, all the way lit, trying to make it through the running, and it worked. I can say it now. I'm not on her team. She's probably watching though.
Yeah. I love Coach Reese. I love Coach Reese.
That's so funny. Oh, we got a comment. Joseph said, Erin is a great teacher. I could already tell where were you.
Where were you when I
Hey, I tell we all could have some Erin Jones, okay? you know for
I hear that from so many people, and it's how I know I'm living in the place of my purpose. Like, I know that I hear that from so many adults. Like, Erin, where were you? Just be happy that I'm teaching your children now. Like, that's what I tell parents is.
Erin is all about not looking backwards for everybody.
No.
Be happy I'm on their generation. We're stopping their generational curse right now, okay? So no pity party with Erin. Oh God, I'm cracking up. That is hilarious. Like every time I'm like, I wish, and you're like, no, don't. We're in the now. Oh, yes, ma'am. All right, man. I love this. Your children want and need to see you leaning into your gifts. It shows your joy. That's powerful. I mean, I'll be sprung. Like, my mom plays. She plays. My mom is dope.
My son and I got to play in a men's league when he was 19. So he's 26 now. So 8 years ago, or not 7 years ago, we got to play in a men's league. So I was 42 years old. 43 years old when I got to play in a men's league with my son. And I remember he was just so proud. And what was so funny is at halftime of one of the games, one of the guys came over and he's like, man, what's her name? You're saying something like Ma, what's her name? And he's like, Mom.
Like, Mom, back door. He's like, what?
And the guy's like, Ma, what kind of name is that? And he's like, Mom, M-O-M. And he's like, Mom, what kind of name? It's like, she's my mother, okay?
They're like, no, for real. Like, who are you? No, really, I birthed him. Okay, and a whole 26 years ago.
Exactly. But I love that. Like, I loved having the opportunity to play with my son in a league together, and he's so proud. Like, he's one of my biggest fans, and even now, he's just when I ran for public office, he drove me to events, and he really is. My oldest son is really my biggest fan, and there's no better thing. And I know part of it is like he played basketball with me for a long time, and he just got to be there. In fact, when he was 3 weeks old, I started coaching with him in a chest pack. So he was on my chest for the first
Erin,
year.
look, it's getting fancier. Look.
Oh, look, you got it moving. You got it moving across the screen.
Wait, it's rotating, you guys. We got rotation. I'm sorry, this is so cool. listen, okay, this is important. No, but I really appreciate you being on the show. This means so much to me in more words than you know, especially that post you made when I asked you to be on as one of my first Run It Back guests. And that just like, oh my God, I was in tears, literally. So I thank you for that. And everybody, thank you who tuned in on the different platforms. I'm like really excited looking at the different people that were watching in different areas. And, of course, your feedback and everything is great. You guys can see Erin's rotating on the bottom of the screen because, I'm fancy like that. And so you guys can reach out to her. But, the one thing I will do that's very similar to my last show, because this is my mantra, this is what I live by, that it's true that it is never too late to choose you, change your path, and walk in your purpose. And I really believe that when Erin's talking about don't look to the left, to the right, to the back, just go forward, press towards a mark, right? That's what that is saying. And so I hope that you guys, this show went a different direction than I was thinking, but I love it because it's the Tasha Haskins show. We can just do that. You heard me? That was my moment. My makeup artist like, Tasha, don't say something like, all hood random, like... That was my moment. You heard me. I'm just kidding. Okay, so, but yeah, it's just fun to be able to just dig deep and talk about those issues that people may think are controversial, which we know, hey, like I said, hey, this is my channel. This is my thing. And God's given me this platform to be able to do this. And so I'm honored that you were my first guest as well as my Run It Back guest. And you're outstanding. You're amazing. You guys see her rotating at the bottom of the screen. Please reach out to her. Make sure you purchase your book. I'm super excited about it. Yes. Oh, look at that. Oh, see, live in a real color. Look at that right there. I love it. I love it. Erin, we're like 2 minutes over, but any last words you want to say? And then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
I want to say back to kind of to encapsulate all the things we talked about with purpose. Do not ever try to be someone else's best self. You can only be your best self. You will always fail at trying to be someone else's best self. And so just be your own best self. And your own best self some days is going to not be as great as the best self of yesterday. You're going to fail sometimes and fall down. And that's just part of life. Get up and keep running. And one of my favorite thoughts as an athlete is, man, loss is part of life. As an athlete, you're going to lose games. What makes great athletes is not that they're naturally gifted more than anyone else. It's that they keep getting back up. Keep getting back up and get in the game. So if you have stepped out of the game, I want to invite you back into the game. Get back on the court.
Get in the game.
Start playing again.
Love that. Yes, ma'am. All right, you guys, you are watching the first Tasha Haskins show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be here again next Tuesday with another amazing Run It Back guest. That's going to be 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time and 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Again, thank you guys so much. Erin, I love you. I appreciate you. I honor you. You guys check her out on Twitter because, that's what she's doing. That's a thing still. Make sure you hit her up. All right, you guys, I love you. Thank you again for the support. Bye, Miss Erin.